Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are grabbing our metaphorical surfboards because we are heading straight into, well, what often feels like the choppiest water of all, modern life.
Hmm.
We're digging into the newest section of Rishi Kuller's book, and it presents this philosophy that is less about fixing yourself and more about recognizing the system you're in.
Right.
So forget the traditional goal setting, the five-step plans, all that relentless optimization that just leaves you feeling anxious and exhausted. This wisdom suggests that life isn't a machine that needs fixing.
No, it's an ocean. It's a complex, adaptive system that you have to learn to ride.
Exactly. An ocean.
And that's the critical pivot, isn't it?
Yeah.
For decades, the model for success has been all about control, certainty, linearity.
Right, if you just plan hard enough.
Exactly. It tells us we can dictate the outcome. But that model just constantly delivers anxiety and eventually burnout because reality is, well, it's nonlinear, it's chaotic.
So our mission today is to cut through all of that noise.
Yeah, our mission is to extract the immediately actionable techniques, the practices, the real-life examples that show exactly how people have done this, how they've transitioned from fighting the current and feeling overwhelmed to becoming fluent within life's chaos. You're going to walk away from this deep dive with a blueprint for surfing your own system.
And the core conflict here is the one we all feel deep down. Why does that conventional wisdom set rigid goals, execute a perfect plan, control every variable? Why does it feel so impossibly exhausting?
And why does it fail so spectacularly?
Yes, because life, by its very nature, is chaos. It's surprise, it's constant, non-negotiable change. So if we reject that idea of controlling the outcome, what practical behaviors actually work instead?
That's the heart of it. That's the revolutionary mindset we have to explore.
Let's jump right into that fundamental shift. Chapter 1 sets up the core idea. Life is a system to ride, not a puzzle to solve. I find that puzzle analogy so compelling. Because the machine model, trying to optimize for the perfect job, the perfect relationship, the whole lost morning routine, it assumes if we just fix the right broken pieces, the machine will run smoothly forever.
But that's a static model in a dynamic world. And that's the wellspring of constant anxiety. When you treat life like a machine, you're constantly trying to force a straight line out of inputs that are always shifting.
So when life throws a curveball, you think it's your fault.
Exactly. A sudden economic downturn, an unexpected health issue. You internalize that as a personal failure of your planning.
Yeah.
The system mindset, though, it just acknowledges that life is chaos. The attempt to optimize for the perfect life is the fastest route to exhaustion. It's a static target in a fluid environment.
So if control is the illusion, what does coordination actually look like in practice? The surfing metaphor has to be central here. A surfer can't command the ocean.
Nope. They can't make a bigger wave appear or dictate its speed. A surfer masters three things: reading the conditions, positioning, and dynamic balance. They spend years learning to read the swell, understanding where the energy is going to break. They position themselves not where they wish the wave would be, but where the wave is going.
And they're constantly adjusting.
Constantly. It shifts the entire objective from I must dictate reality to I can coordinate my actions with what reality presents. It's a profound energetic shift. If you're constantly depleted, you're probably still trying to build a machine.
We see the system riding in real time, especially with career pivots. The book highlights the difference between planning a career like a ladder versus noticing patterns and riding waves.
Oh, the latter approach is so brittle. It assumes the job you want will even exist in 5 years, and that the path is purely linear. Step 1, get the certification. Step 2, get the promotion.
Right.
The wave approach is completely observational. The most successful pivots, they don't come from a 5-year plan. They come from noticing patterns.
Like what?
Well, the book cites people who switch from, say, high-level consulting to these specialized roles in product ops. They didn't plan that title, they just noticed a pattern.
That they got energized by.
By fixing broken systems, by running the crisis debriefs, making order out of chaos, they built on their emergent strengths and positioned themselves for the next wave, which wasn't a pre-existing job title, but a new need that arose. They followed the energy, not a pre-prescribed path.
This moves us right into these actionable techniques. Kuhler calls it low-stakes data gathering. This replaces that painful, rigid goal setting. What are the moves people can start right now?
The first, and it's the softest, is pattern spotting. Just asking, what's emerging in my life right now? It's gentle observation, not aggressive action.
So where are people asking for your advice? What do you dread every week?
Exactly. What keeps breaking? This leads to energy mapping, which is maybe the most practical tool in the whole book. You just track what activities, people, or environments give you energy versus what drains you. That data is your true North Star.
Okay, energy mapping sounds crucial, but I can see people getting bogged down in analysis paralysis. Do I need a spreadsheet for this?
No, keep it simple. We'll get into the full audit later, but the immediate version is just tracking 3 categories for a few days: charge, drain, and neutral. The insight comes from the contrast.
And then you act on that data.
Yes, with low-stakes surfing.
Yeah.
Don't wait for absolute clarity. Just launch an experiment, test a new community, pitch a small project, start a new skill for just 30 days. You gather data by moving, not by waiting on the beach for the perfect wave. Certainty is the enemy here.
And the counter move to that is exit loops. What does that look like?
Exit loops are about consciously stopping things that feel dead, heavy, or stale. It could be a commitment, a relationship, a habit that once served you but now feels like carrying sandbags. You just stop.
You let that wave pass.
You let it pass. Cooler is really clear on this. Trying to force momentum into something that no longer serves you just because you planned it 6 months ago, that is the definition of fighting the system. The moment you stop forcing life to follow your old script, becomes more livable.
This pivot completely reframes the 2 biggest sources of modern anxiety: purpose and happiness. Chapter 2 goes into why the word purpose is actually harmful.
It creates monumental pressure, doesn't it? This idea of a single correct answer that you should have already found. It leaves you feeling perpetually behind.
And that anxiety is crippling. It leads to endless searching.
Right. The better framing is that purpose is a verb, not a noun. It's formed through interaction with the world, not found through deep, solitary meditation. It emerges from action, connection, and feedback. If you wait for clarity before you act, purpose just never arrives.
The book outlines a practical framework, the 3 boxes of purpose.
Yeah. Usefulness, it genuinely helps someone. Energy, you lose track of time doing it, that flow state.
Yeah.
And demand, others keep asking you to do more of it.
So instead of asking, what's my grand purpose?
You ask, where am I currently being pulled into service in ways that energize me? It just de-escalates the existential pressure. The example of the accidental mentor is perfect. A professional helps a friend with a cover letter. It's low stakes.
She loses track of time doing it.
That's energy. The friend gets the job.
Usefulness.
And that friend refers 2 other people.
Demand.
Suddenly, without planning it, she's the go-to person for career advice. The path chose her through action and reaction, not a 5-year plan.
So the practical move is to start logging these feedback loops. How can someone prototype their purpose?
First, you log the loops.
Yeah.
What drained you, what energized you, and what others ask you to do again. If something keeps landing in both energized and demand, you found a prototype worth exploring.
Then you run small experiments.
Exactly. Teach a skill, build a small tool, host a gathering. You don't need to define your life's mission. You just need to notice the vector, the direction life keeps nudging you. Purpose is a current you join, not a mountain you climb alone.
This view of purpose leads right to Chapter 8 and the happiness trap. We're all conditioned to chase constant happiness, and the book argues this guarantees dissatisfaction.
It does. If happiness is the goal, you're always failing. Happiness, like a perfect wave, is a side effect. It comes and goes like the weather. It's a state, not a destination.
And that chase makes us pathologize any other state.
Yes, which leads to this profound insight. Growth feels like discomfort, unease, frustration, uncertainty, grief. These are often vital signs of expansion, not evidence of failure. We've been wrongly trained to believe that the system should feel easy if we're doing it right.
That's a huge reframe. If I'm feeling uncomfortable, my old programming says to stop or retreat. How do we practically apply this and rewire our reward system?
You replace the internal metric of happy with aligned. The question becomes, did this hard thing feel aligned with what matters to me? If yes, you lean into the discomfort.
And you stop tracking mood and start tracking vitality.
Right. Or did you connect authentically? Did you create something? Did you stretch your capacity? These things build long-term alignment, regardless of your short-term mood. And you use pain, sadness, anxiety as a precise feedback signal, not an alarm you have to mute with distraction.
Let's talk about the really tough stuff. Crisis. Chapter 9 describes breakdowns as invitations, not interruptions. A divorce, burnout, failure. It feels like the end of the world.
But the system is providing an involuntary pause. It's forcing you to stop, listen, and change. A crisis is essentially the system forcing a stop because the structure you built was unsustainable. A breakdown is the breaking of an illusion.
The illusion that I'm fine or this job is fulfilling.
Precisely. Crises strip away all the external buffers, status, identity, comfort, and force you to confront the truth. The non-obvious insight is that a crisis doesn't just destroy, it clears the ground.
The book uses that powerful anecdote of the career freefall. A woman at the top of her field loses her job and her entire identity just shatters.
Yeah, because it was all wrapped up in her title. She said the panic felt like she'd lost her mask, but that acute panic forced her to stop chasing external validation and start writing for herself for the first time in a decade.
And that writing became a best-selling book.
The crisis gave her the only permission slip that mattered. The system itself said, "You must change." The panic became the catalyst for becoming someone she actually liked, outside of her title.
So the practical move isn't to fix it immediately, it's observation. To use the breakdown as a blueprint.
You have to resist the urge to fix it, to just jump back into the same pattern. First, observe the ruins. What exactly fell apart and why was it unsustainable? You take inventory of the structural flaws.
And then you create a ritual of renewal.
Yes, and it's not about bouncing back to the old self. The old self was the source of the breakdown. It's about building forward. It might be a ritual of shedding old professional clothes or starting a new weekly activity that has no outcome. A conscious, embodied decision to integrate the learning and start anew.
This connects to Chapter 10's concept of resilience. Control is brittle, capacity is resilient. People obsessed with control break when life shifts.
But people focused on capacity, the inner ability to handle whatever reality brings, they adapt and grow. Capacity is simple. I can handle what reality brings, even if it's unpleasant.
Like the example of the unexpected diagnosis.
Yeah, the high-achieving engineer who micromanaged his whole career, forced into early retirement by a heart event. He spiraled because his identity was based on the illusion of control. He had to build new capacities for managing fear, for navigating financial uncertainty, for finding meaning in volunteering. He outgrew the need for control by building muscles that worked in any environment.
So how do we start building that muscle? You mentioned a capacity rep.
First, you audit. What situations cause you immediate panic or rigidity? That's where you're relying on brittle control. A capacity rep is an intentional action where you do something hard that you can't control perfectly.
Like cold calling a client without a script.
Or speaking off the cuff in a meeting. And success isn't about the outcome. It's about the internal expansion. Did I expand my ability to handle the fear? Did I recover quickly when I stumbled? You redefine success as expanding your ability to handle the chaos.
And finally, Chapter 18, which sounds like a paradox, surrender is not submission.
Right. Because the more tightly you try to control external things, a client's decision, a relationship's future, the less genuine influence you have. You're just constantly reacting. Surrender is a precise, tactical move where you cut the illusion of control to gain realistic power.
You stop wasting energy on the unchangeable.
And redirect it toward what you can influence.
So, practically speaking, you draw two circles.
Yes. The inner circle, which you directly control, your effort, your response, your daily rituals. The outer circle, what you care about but cannot control, the economy, other people's feelings. Most stress comes from blurring that line.
You have to be ruthless about pruning that outer circle.
And critically, you replace the verb control with cadence. You can't control a project's outcome, but you can control your daily cadence. Deep work blocks, weekly check-ins. Influence lives in consistent routines, not rigid commands. Voluntary surrender is the ultimate act of self-sovereignty.
Okay, part 2 is all about building new navigation tools. If we're surfing, we need internal metrics. We start with the energy audit from Chapter 3. Why is energy a better metric than time?
Because you run out of energy, not time. Time is fixed and linear. Energy is lumpy and non-linear. One exhausted hour at 4 p.m. is not the same as one focused hour at 9 a.m.
But most people schedule their lives just by the clock.
They do, and they ignore their own rhythm. Energy is the data that reveals your actual capacity, and most people ignore it until they crash.
That insight that energy is data is huge. How do we leverage it?
It gives you the power of ruthless alignment. Take the example of the wrong job that wasn't. A manager was convinced she hated her company, ready to quit. She did an energy audit.
And she realized?
She realized client calls and mentoring charged her up. But writing long strategy decks and managing endless emails drained her completely. She didn't quit. She renegotiated her role to double down on the energizers and delegate the drainers. Her satisfaction soared without changing jobs. She found energetic alignment.
That is incredibly practical. Let's give the listener the full steps for their own energy audit.
Okay, for 7 days, at the end of every 2-hour block, you track 3 things. state, energized, drained, or neutral. And crucially, the triggers. What activity, person, time of day, or environment was associated with that state.
So like drained writing budget report at 3 p.m. under fluorescent lights.
Exactly. After 7 days, you create an energy balance sheet. 2 columns, recharge and drain. You analyze the patterns. You might notice strategy meetings are on both lists. Planning is recharge, but reporting is drain.
And the payoff.
You redesign your week around that data. Your top 3 energizers become non-negotiable appointments. You establish boundaries around the top 3 drainers, automate them, delegate them, or quit them. Your energy map is the most honest blueprint of who you are.
And if that map is ignored, burnout is inevitable. Chapter 6 is clear. Burnout is misalignment, not just long hours.
It's not. Burnout is often emotional starvation. It's rooted in meaningless work, unclear progress, powerlessness, misaligned values, or disconnection. You can work 80 hours a week and feel energized if the meaning is high.
But you can work 35 hours and feel dead inside.
If those nutrients are absent, it's an emptiness problem, not a time problem.
The book cites the disconnected engineer who worked longer hours at startup than at big tech, but wasn't burned out.
The difference was the return on his labor. At big tech, he was a cog, detached from the user. At the startup, his voice mattered. He saw immediate user benefit. He felt aligned with the mission. He wasn't emotionally undernourished. The labor was hard, but his soul was fed.
So the practical application is restoring meaning. How do we do that if we can't just quit?
First, inventory your soul erosion tasks, the ones that leave you numb. Second, inject clarity and agency wherever you can. Can you define success for your project in a way that feels meaningful to you? Third, add relational nutrients. Co-working sessions, debriefs with trusted colleagues, reconnect with the why.
This connects to a concept a lot of high achievers resist. Laziness is signal. What looks like a lack of discipline is often misalignment.
Absolutely. We pathologize resistance. When you're fighting massive internal resistance, you're probably not lazy. You're experiencing a misalignment between your values and the task. Discipline without meaning is just suffering.
So don't fight the resistance, decode it.
Right. Track the contrast between what makes you lose time and flow versus what makes you want to quit. And ask, why is this resistance here? Is it a skill gap? Fear of failure? Or does this task violate a core value, like autonomy or connection? Then you reframe the action to map to your identity.
We have to confront the dark side of high performance now, the achievement trap. Chapter 4 talks about success as addiction.
It's a socially approved drug, yeah. Often used to avoid the fear of irrelevance, stillness, or feeling. The problem is it confuses anxiety for drive.
What are the clues?
Agitation when you're quiet. Sense of panic on vacation. Bragging about being crazy busy. That isn't passion. That's withdrawal symptoms from the drug of external validation.
The case of the unhappy millionaire illustrates this perfectly. Sells his company, gets massive wealth, and 6 months later is clinically depressed.
So he starts a hollow new company because his identity was completely reliant on the output loop. He was depressed because he was no longer producing the thing that told him he was valuable. He had to confront the identity crisis that existed outside his company's success.
So how does a listener do the addiction litmus test without, crashing their career?
You ask, what would happen if I stopped striving for 6 months? If the answer is paralyzing panic, you have an identity addiction. Your worth equals your output.
And in the practical moves?
Small, controlled experiments. Yeah. 1 goal-free, screen-free evening a week. Pursue something explicitly useless but joyful, like drawing badly. You study the withdrawal symptoms, the urge to check email, the panic, but you don't judge it. You're building an identity based on stillness, not status.
This leads right to Chapter 5, the wrong metrics. Humans are perfectly designed to optimize what is measured.
And if we measure salary, status, or output instead of fulfillment, serenity, or energy, we get hyper-efficient at building a life that exhausts us.
The book says metrics are identity templates.
That's the deepest insight. What you track becomes who you are. If you constantly check your inbox, your identity becomes always available. The question isn't, are my metrics accurate? But are my metrics designing a version of me I actually want to be?
The story of the productivity spiral is a cautionary tale.
Yes. This woman tracked her day in 15-minute blocks, thinking micro-efficiency was the path to peace. Instead, she felt chronically behind and spiraled into shame. Her solution wasn't a better app. It was deleting the app and tracking joy and energy instead. Her happiness doubled.
So, the immediate move is to audit your metrics. What should you be asking?
List the 3 things you measure most regularly. Then ask, what does this measurement silently reward? Fast over deep, visible over meaningful, and critically, What am I neglecting because I don't measure it? Emotional depth, recovery, presence. Then choose one new metric that reclaims your attention.
Finally, Chapter 39 reminds us that sometimes goals can be sabotage.
Because a goal set from a place of lack, of lose 20 pounds because I feel unworthy, creates an addiction to striving. The moment the goal is achieved, the insecurity just comes right back. The root wound was never addressed.
So the system is designed to keep you seeking.
Yes. You have to flip the perspective from lack to wholeness. Replace the rigid, lack-based target, lose 20 pounds, with an energetic direction, feel vibrant and alive in my body. It shifts the focus from external validation to internal experience.
Okay, Part 3 moves from internal metrics to external structures. Chapter 7 is critical. Career moves are identity moves. A new job is rarely just about new tasks.
No, it's an invitation to become a new version of yourself, from the technical doer to the strategic leader. And this is where so many high performers fail. They drag their old identity, the one that made them feel competent, into the new role.
And promotions trigger identity crises.
Exactly, because you're asked to stop doing the thing you're good at and start relying on others, which feels like a loss of control.
Let's talk about the micromanaging manager. A brilliant analyst gets promoted, but keeps fixing her team's slides, rerunning the numbers herself.
She was trying to prove she was still the smartest person in the room, fulfilling her old identity of the brilliant technician. She only succeeded when she performed a conscious identity shift. Her new identity became, my job is to make others shine. It was an identity change, not just a skill change.
So the listener needs an identity shift map. How do we build that?
First, map your current identity. What behaviors make you feel competent right now? Second, name the new identity: architect, coach, navigator. Third, build transitional rituals. Maybe you dress differently or create a new internal reward system where you win when your team succeeds without your direct intervention. You have to consciously grieve the old identity.
Chapter 11 talks about character as a capability, not a fixed trait.
It's trained under pressure. It's revealed when your values cost you comfort or status. It's easy to have integrity when nothing's on the line. Character is defined when you have to choose to lose the big raise to protect a colleague.
The promotion that wasn't worth it anecdote really shows this.
Yeah, an executive was offered a huge promotion, but it required him to betray a colleague and work under someone he disrespected. He declined it. He made a conscious, long-term bet on his own integrity, knowing that would be more valuable than the short-term status bump.
How do you train this capability?
Run a pre-mortem drill. If this project fails completely in 6 months, what would I still be proud of? That reveals your non-negotiable values. And set identity-based goals like act in a way that earns trust. And finally, use the painful, easy choice filter. Ask what the fearful, lazier version of you would do, and then do the opposite.
This helps us tackle imposter syndrome. The book says it's not a competence gap.
No, it's a disconnection problem. You feel fake because your external life, the title, the achievement, has outpaced your internal truth. You're succeeding at things that are fundamentally misaligned with who you are. You feel like an imposter because you're living a role that isn't really yours.
And Chapter 43 introduces the heartbreaking value trap. We're often wired from a young age to be loved for being useful.
So when the job title vanishes, the mirror reflecting your worth vanishes with it. We mistake external validation for self-worth.
How do we escape this?
You have to anchor your identity in values, not validation. Practice naming who you are without achievement. The book suggests creating mirror moments. Stand and look at yourself for 2 minutes and say, I matter because I exist, not because of what I produce today.
And unbundle praise.
Yes. When someone compliments you, practice hearing them appreciate who you were. Calm, kind, insightful, not just what you did. It rewires the nervous system.
Oh, let's talk about the environment, the actual soil we're planted in. Chapter 19 is fundamental. Nothing changes until the system changes.
This is maybe the most important lesson in the book. If you're doom scrolling or constantly unfocused, the root problem isn't willpower. It's a flawed system. The environment, the notification architecture, these are all upstream of your behavior.
So if willpower is a finite battery, we have to rely on system architecture. What does designing friction and default paths look like?
You design friction into bad habits. If the phone is the problem, move the charger to another room, delete the apps. The few seconds of effort are enough friction to break the impulse. Conversely, you create default paths for right behavior. Gym, closed by the door. Deep work blocks scheduled as immovable meetings.
The ultimate instruction is to audit your systems weekly. Don't fix your brain, fix the architecture around it.
Exactly. You are not lazy or broken. You're running a system that was never designed for the outcomes you actually want, like peace or depth or presence.
Chapter 32 explores this metaphor. The system is the soil. Your environment is always training you. And the painful truth is that you can't heal in the same environment that made you sick.
This often requires radical surgery. The chaotic parent didn't need another app. They needed a rule that created a quiet space for 3 hours a week to regulate their own nervous system. The overweight trainer needed to replace all the junk food with pre-cut, healthy options. You have to retired. Design for your defaults, assume you'll be tired and distracted.
And what does ruthless calendar gardening entail?
It's the weekly ritual of pulling out recurring meetings that don't nourish you. You're creating space by default. You also upgrade your triggers. Instead of your phone by your bed, put a journal there. You're swapping the cue for distraction with a cue for reflection.
But this is balanced by Chapter 34, the power of friction. If everything feels smooth, you're not growing.
Ease makes you passive. We instinctively avoid friction, but friction is what builds capability. If your environment is too comfortable, you're becoming weak. You need to intentionally introduce good friction.
Like what?
Run a friction audit. What in your life is too easy? Maybe it's conversations. Add friction by banning small talk. Ask questions like, what have you changed your mind about recently? You have to stop fleeing hard feedback. Friction is the gym of your psyche.
Okay, moving into Part 4. Let's tackle the internal loops that paralyze us. Chapter 15. You can't think your way to peace. Overthinking is procrastination dressed as productivity.
It is. Rumination is the mind inventing puzzles to avoid confronting the fluid reality of life, grief, uncertainty. The mind is a terrible place to live after midnight. It just runs worst-case scenarios.
So the solution is somatic, not mental. Use your body to quiet your mind.
Yes. When you're looping, the fastest way out is a somatic state shift. Get up, go for a fast walk, blast cold water on your face, do focused breath work. It shifts your nervous system state faster than any mental debate. And you need to build a no-input hour daily. No phone, no news, just space for the nervous system to defrag.
This redirection of energy leads to Chapter 24, anxiety as unspent creativity.
Anxiety is just misused imagination, the capacity to play catastrophic what-if scenarios. That same powerful capacity can be channeled into strategy and creation. The founder who constantly catastrophized about market failures, he channeled that energy into launching a formal pre-mortem process for his company. What once paralyzed him now guided their risk planning.
So the application is to channel excess mental energy into creation.
Design, draft, outline, build. Anxiety hates forward motion. Create a creative dump ritual at night. Write down every thought, worry, plan, idea. Get it out of the mental loop.
And Chapter 57, the inner narrator. Most suffering comes not from reality, but from how we narrate it.
The interpretation is the source of the pain. I failed, I'm a loser. Feels like truth, but it's just a story based on limited data.
How do we stop believing the story?
First, name the voice, the critic, the regulator, to create distance. Second, ruthlessly differentiate fact versus story. And third, practice reframing quickly. Instead of, they didn't reply because they hate me, you quickly replace it with, they might be busy.
Let's tackle the most insidious blocker. Avoidance. Chapter 17. Avoidance is the most expensive addiction.
It's a tax on your mental bandwidth that accrues interest on anxiety. It's that unfinished conversation, the delayed bill. The cost isn't the one hard conversation, it's the months of psychic load.
The toolkit for this needs to be aggressive. What's the 72-hour rule?
If you're avoiding something for more than 3 days, you must immediately schedule it. And you must script the first sentence. Don't debate the timing, just book it. Also, name the real fear. Write down the absolute worst-case scenario. When it's externalized, it loses its power. And finally, engage in micro-exposures. Pick one thing that makes you flinch daily, like checking your bank balance.
Avoidance leads to that state in Chapter 12, disconnected from your own life, living on autopilot.
Right. The executive who said his life was like watching a YouTube video at 2x speed with the sound off. He was functional, but not present. The system of his life was running him.
His solution was simple, though. Walks with no phone, journaling, 1 hour of stillness on Sundays.
We can adopt a touchstone ritual, a physical cue. When you walk through your front door, touch the doorknob and say, I'm home now. It anchors you in the present. You have to schedule intentional stillness.
Chapter 14 addresses social health. Isolation is the new smoking.
Chronic isolation spikes cortisol. It's as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And it's not about the number of connections. It's about relational nutrients and depth. You need a core group who knows what's actually going on.
How do we apply the 3-2-1 rule?
It's a weekly maintenance plan. 3 meaningful check-ins, 2 one-on-one calls with depth, and 1 in-person hangout. Beyond that, you have to audit for nutrients, not numbers. Rank your relationships, which are energy-giving, which are draining. Deepen the highest and create boundaries around the lowest.
And finally, Chapter 44, picking the wrong people. Why do we consistently choose partners or friends who replicate past pain?
Because attraction is often to what's familiar from childhood. Even if that familiarity is associated with distance or chaos, the nervous system calls safe what it learned early on.
So it might find exciting chemistry with an emotionally unavailable partner because that's a familiar challenge.
An attempt to resolve the original wound.
How do we stop the system from rerunning old patterns?
You have to trace the pattern. Write down the emotional tone of your past relationships and link it to your early life. Once the pattern is named, it loses its unconscious power. Then you practice spending time with consistent, boring people. If a relationship feels stable and predictable, the nervous system may initially register it as boring, but that's the necessary work to rewire your safety signals.
Okay, we've reached the final barrier, action. Chapter 65 argues change doesn't take time, it takes a decision.
Right. The 6 years you spent agonizing over quitting your job wasn't preparation, it was avoidance. Once the decision is truly made, like the lawyer who quit after her 6-year-old asked why she didn't smile on work days, change is fast. The decision is the lever that uncreases the system.
So we need to artificially create that snap.
Give yourself a deadline, non-negotiable. Burn the bridge delete plan A so you have to commit. And name the real cost of waiting, not in dollars, but in peace and vitality.
Chapter 66 highlights the courage gap, not the skill gap. The life you want is hiding behind one hard, honest conversation.
You can't build a life you love while actively lying to everyone in it. The avoidance of that honest conversation is the highest tax you pay.
So act fast.
Name the conversation. Script the first 30 seconds. Use the rule of 72 hours to act before fear rebuilds a prison. And accept the fallout. You're not responsible for how people react to your truth, only for telling it.
Finally, Chapter 67, confidence is momentum. It's a byproduct, not a prerequisite.
People wait to feel confident before they act, but it's reversed. You act while scared, you gain a little clarity, which builds confidence, and then confidence arrives. If you wait until you're ready, you'll wait forever.
So the ultimate practical moves.
Lower the bar. Aim for done, not amazing. Track small wins relentlessly because momentum compounds. And the mantra, act before you're ready. You won't be ready, ever. Start anyway.
Part 5 is about making this change stick. Chapter 26, when logic fails, use ritual.
Rituals bypass willpower. They signal gain time to the brain. It's the surgeon touching a specific stone for focus, or the writer waiting for the kettle to whistle. Physical, sensory cues that anchor a high-performance state.
So we design pre-action rituals.
Anchor big habits to small physical cues. Lacing up your shoes means the workout follows. A specific lamp means it's reading time. It makes the desired behavior the default.
This connects to the idea that defaults beat discipline. Life runs on defaults. What happens when you're tired or stressed?
Exactly. Willpower is a battery. Systems are your metabolism. You have to engineer your defaults, make the good thing frictionless, design for your worst day scenario. And swap, don't stack. Replace one default with a better one. Don't just pile on a new habit.
And Chapter 55, mastering triggers.
Triggers follow the loop. Cue, action, reward. If you want to change the action, debug the cue. For bad habits, insert friction, log out of social media. For good habits, create positive cues. Put the book on the pillow, use if-then maps. If I finish lunch, then I will walk outside for 10 minutes.
Let's look at the ultimate meaning of success. Chapter 46, why striving feels empty. The trap of abstract goals.
If the goal's external and abstract, like a billion-dollar company, the success feels hollow. You are chasing a symbol, not an experience. The energy shift is focusing on cycles over outcomes. Writing daily with no goal to publish, cooking for friends. These generate immediate emotional ROI.
So the tactical shift is in the calendar.
Audit the past 2 weeks. Where were you drained and where were you fulfilled? Identify the high-energy, low-status cycles. Then protect 3 recurring blocks weekly for those activities. Peace is an intentional ritual, not chasing results.
And finally, Chapter 79, integration, making it real.
Real change is weaving what you know into how you live. And the core insight is non-negotiable. If it doesn't show up in your calendar, it's not real. Your calendar is the truth of your values.
So the final integration steps.
First, audit inputs. Ruthlessly cut information streams that don't fuel your clarity. Second, codify your principles. 5 to 7 guiding rules taped where you see them. Third, rebuild your week. Align your calendar with your values. And fourth, build a weekly feedback loop. What worked? What broke? What's the one architectural fix for next week? So we've completed an exhaustive deep dive. We've covered the shift from that brittle control model to the dynamic coordination of the system mindset.
Right.
And the core message is, I think, really powerful and reassuring. You are not broken. You're embedded in complex systems that are constantly giving you feedback.
Right. The pain is just data.
The pain is data. It's not a personal failure. The path forward requires adopting that surfing the system approach, coordination over control, and using the tools we talked about, energy audits, designing better defaults, taking courageous action, and building intentional rituals to change the architecture of your life.
And the ultimate goal of all this work isn't to achieve some kind of perfect safety or seamless optimization. It's to live a fully realized life, the ocean. It doesn't care about your rigid plans or your timelines. Your life is your laboratory. Test things, be prepared to fall, adjust your stance, and keep paddling back out because the next wave always comes. And having the capacity and the courage to ride it, that's what transformation really looks like.